Today I have my friend Dan Morgan, who is from Silicon Valley, as we all know, Bay Area in California. So just for context, Dan is born and brought up in California, US. He has almost spent 30 to 40 years of his life in Silicon Valley, as we know, in the Bay Area. So he has seen the starting phase of the industrial boom or technology boom, and then he has seen a couple of decades how it has evolved. He worked with Cisco for almost 10 to 15 years, leading their global finance team, and then moved to working with startups as a CFO. He has seen companies grow, companies become successful, companies fail. Interestingly, on the personal note, he is also scuba diving instructor or advisor or a coach. And I was telling him just now, that I think it's a unique blend for a person coming from a finance background to be a scuba diver or even an instructor or a coach in scuba diving, because in both the roles you have to be super alert while you do any activity, right? Whether it's if you are working as a finance person or maybe when you are doing a scuba diving with 30, 40 meters deep in the ocean. So Dan, thank you so much for accepting this request, and we have to be super casual.
Yeah.
And let's see how it goes today.
Yeah, you bet.
Would you like to add anything which I missed in a very sarcastic form? That's what you like, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think your comment about the scuba is awesome. The difference is slightly different in that the detail that you need in scuba could just be threatening your life, right?
Yeah.
Now, you could miss a factor in finance if you're not paying attention to the detail, to your point, and you could harm a company, right?
Makes sense.
But that attention to detail is essential to finance and the journey that I've had to have the mindset to be able to get to the detail, at least in the finance world. But to your point, it's not just finance, right? You have to understand both the accounting piece, the finance piece, and the business and the process to really bring the value. Or at least that's been my experience over time.
Yeah. So starting with a simple question, which is again related to first year professional, which is finance, that if I am a first time entrepreneur, I've just started my business, maybe 6 months into it, 3 months into it, 1 year into it, in very layman, simple terms, what is finance for a first time entrepreneur who is just 3 months, 6 months into business, and doesn't have to be like tech. It can be any business. It can be manufacturing, anything you see.
Yeah. For me, it's 2 or 3 factors. It's first, how do you want to measure your business? And second, keeping in mind that the numbers are just going to tell you a story. So if you understand how you want to describe your business, how you want to analyze it, that will inform your finance person to set up the structure so that when you get the results, you can tell a story. And the finance person should be focused on the business side of what are the milestones, what are the metrics that you're measuring, and the finance information should then support that. Or not, in which case you problem solve to go move to another direction. So you've got milestones early on in the business, you need to make sure you have your product market fit. Once you have that and you've got your beta out there, then you're going after demand. What are the metrics the finance is going to end up yielding to you is, what's my cost to acquire a customer is a great example. How do you lay everything out so that you can actually give that answer and that story of we're retaining our customers, it only costs us this much, we're already moving towards profitability, even if the cash flow is not positive, but on a customer to customer level, you've got that. Because your experience was right away, you have highly profitable customers, and it's what got the growth for our company that we've had today, was having that interaction be a positive one at the customer level.
Got it. So see, in my experience, and this happens with every first time business person or entrepreneur, right? Because not everyone most of them will not have a finance background who is like, if they are a founder. My perception, and in my like first 3 to 4 years, my focus while I was growing or building business was towards revenue, right? And most of us think that whether it's sales, marketing, customer success, should be the first priority when you're growing, and then somewhat you don't give that importance to the support functions, which is whether it's HR, finance, IT, or few other stuff. I even thought, and I feel that still our understanding of finance as new people starting the business is either it's accounts payable, the money which we have to pay, whether it's to our employees, to our vendors, subscriptions, and the other piece is account receivables, right? The money which we collect from our customers, and then we do like plus minus, like how much is our AR, how much is our AP, and then that's our profit. It's like that simple. Like we don't invest more. Maybe if you have to like this 3 to 4 pointers, very simple, like if I'm a first time entrepreneur, what should be my focus from finance point of view, like in maybe first 2 years of my business or 3 years of my business?
Yeah. You already outlined one of the most important things. Cash is king. You need to know, what am I burning? How long do I have?
Yeah.
You can then back into the milestones of what do I have to do in order to get those sales that you need, so that you then can see what are the unit economics associated with each deal or each customer, so that you know that you're scaling in the right way. Because if you spend some time analyzing the business of what, I'll call it a microcosm of what you end up building, you can then say, okay, we are burning today, but after we get X number of customers, because we know each customer's profitable, we will then get to the break even because some of the infrastructure is there. So first piece is cash is king, know your runway. Second piece, get to the unit economics so you know how, not just the cost in total, but your margin that you're getting on the customer. And know when do you need to invest a little bit more in finance, because they should help you tell the story, what your results are. So if I know I have a bottom line and I'm getting cash flow that's good, how do I get to the point that I actually know that my gross margin is good? Because that's another key metric along the way, even if your cash flow is not positive. If my gross margin is, now I need to figure out how do I manage OpEx better. So cash is always king. You're spot on. That always should be there for your first sort of 10 years until you actually have real good EBITDA. It's the other microcosms of things that you need to figure out model-wise that you can then do a rule of thumb to help guide you. And you're actually really good at building those right up front in terms of conversations on the product side that will get to those answers. The key on the finance side is me listening to my partner and me helping describe how do you tell that story, or what is the way that you can go and tell the story as far as the numbers are concerned.
Got it. So you mentioned two important words, I would say, like metrics, right? One is runway and second is cash burn. I feel like, many of them might not even know what is a runway and cash burn. So can you explain it in like
simple terms? Yeah. So cash burn is, if I were to, for a given month, let's just make it super simple. Let's just say that I had $1 million and I'm spending 100,000. I have 10 months of runway. If I had revenue that would then be cash coming in, and let's say it was 50, I could now double my runway.
Yeah.
So super simple terms, I have X amount of my cash in my bank and I'm burning this much, I'm consuming this much cash each month. That's your denominator, and all of a sudden you have how many months you have left over. In super simple terms.
Got it.
The key is to understand when the cash is coming in, because as you build customers, when do they pay you does matter.
Yeah.
Timing becomes important. How you manage your accounts payable, to your point, is important as well. In the beginning, Because cash burn and the amount in your bank is what matters those first couple of years.
Cool. So now when we look at finance as a department, and let's say, we are running a decent sized business, $10 million, $20 million. If I'm the CEO, how many functions should my finance department have? Sub-functions under finance, right? What you think are the important people and pieces I should have in my finance department?
So you can actually have people who wear multiple hats, and you have to. Most likely, you have a controller type person who can do analysis for you and do a forecast, because you can't afford to have a financial planning person, an accounting person, and somebody doing your margin work. You have an AP person who's paying the bills, probably doing payroll, and you have an AR person doing collections. And then you have some manager level person who can actually look at the total business, the financial statements, and start telling that story for you. That skill is difficult to have. And rarely, because if you have a good accountant, you don't necessarily have somebody who has a personality.
Yeah.
Cash in, cash out piece of the equation, the analysis and finding somebody that can do that for you. It sometimes is somebody as good as a sales ops person that works with the controller.
Got it.
Because in the startup, we can't afford to have multiple roles, only a few, and so we all have to switch our hats to figure out what.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So coming to a CFO question, right? You have been CFO almost for more than 10 years in your life. What is CFO first? Why a business should have a CFO? How critical role a CFO plays in any company's journey and success? And when is the right time to hire a CFO in your, growth journey?
Yeah. So for me, I've done the fractional CFO work where clearly somebody's a Series A. So people have already figured out their product market fit and they're starting to figure out how to sell. There's a few, somewhere in the 10 million range or less, usually, they can't afford a full-time person. But they need somebody to help guide them on, if I'm going to build a financial model, and you're listening to your founders, CEOs of the world, how do you translate what the business is and the vision is going to be into the numbers that tell the story that is it really viable? Is my customer acquisition cost such that as I scale, I'll actually start earning a bottom line at a certain point? So you do need the strategic level planning piece of the equation, even when you're young, and you can get that via fractional.
Got it.
Depending on the scale, your Series B, sometimes people end up getting that. Series B is when you're beginning to scale your revenue. Sometimes people end up having CFOs at that point. But it's when you start to get in the $20 million range and you're wanting to scale the business, not just in revenue, but also, let's say I have to really invest in a project engineering team. How fast do I do that? How much marketing do I have? So we were talking about, from a CFO perspective, when do you invest? And it's really around when you need answers of how to invest and where to invest, and you're not getting the answers that you think you should from a controller. You need somebody who can do the translation of, here's the business. How do I translate the business into real numbers that then translate into the story that you believe is happening or not? And if you don't translate to that, then you start to do the problem solving on what do we have to do. Maybe you have to go a little bit slower. Maybe we have to figure out that marketing is going to have to be more viral before we go and do a lot of brand awareness. It's so context oriented on where you are in that journey.
So basically what you're saying is finance is not a department, or CFO and his team is not a department who is only to process payments or collect payments, but finance is a critical piece in any business who is an important partner to have if you or your department has to succeed?
I like that summary of when you get to the point that you need more strategic help on your story, and you're hiring people that are wanting to invest, you need a person to weigh the pros and cons of how much you're doing. So you need that business partner to translate what is the right time to do those things. It's interjecting the finance equation into the strategic conversations. That can make a huge difference. If we overinvest in certain functions, we could end up, depending on how we're growing, we could end up having a cash crunch, which is something that isn't always the funnest thing.
Cool. So, if I'm a finance student, right, and I have to, I want to make my career in finance,
Yeah.
what's the right way to become a CFO?
There's, for every person you talk to, you're going to probably get a different answer. My answer is to play the long game. Early in your career, move to different jobs so that over time you've seen every part of the organization. You then become, when you're a good finance person, you become an expert of the business cycle that person does. So let's say I'm in manufacturing, finance, and I'm working with my purchasing person because they're buying all the materials to build the product. I want to become a purchasing expert by listening and communicating. So from a personality perspective, you need to learn excellent communication skills. Excellent. And part of that communication skills is really learning how to listen. Because if you don't know how to listen,
important.
when you end up trying to partner to people, they won't be heard, and you're kind of lost at that point. So my career, and again, this is my experience, my career was I moved every 2 years to a new function, so that after about 12 years, I now had seen almost every function in the organization on an enterprise level, big company. So now I know what good looks like. Now I can start moving into leadership and not get stalled by lack of knowledge.
So you're saying that you almost worked in different departments. By function, you mean you worked in sales, you worked in marketing, operations,
Yeah, so I worked
finance?
in manufacturing finance. I worked in corporate finance, which is publishing to the street. I worked in treasury, where you're managing cash. I worked in supporting sales and all of the metrics associated with that, with the sales cycle. I've worked in the business unit, where you then start to bring some of those pieces together, where the business GM is saying, Dan, our manufacturing costs and our margin's not good. Can you go work with a manufacturing finance person who I know because I've done it? But I also need to start working with the marketing person. How much do I want to invest? So I'm beginning to get the skills for a CFO because I'm getting that multidisciplinary view of things. By being a BU controller, the difference is I'm not managing AP and AR for a big company, but I have a business that I'm managing. So my experience at Cisco was we were a $1 billion business, and 3 years later, we were a $4 billion business. We started at 72% margin and ended up at 84% margin.
Oh, nice.
So that was all around some of the skills of learning to communicate, bringing other people together to start to think about what the integrated view of the enterprise is. So getting all those multifunctional pieces allows you to then begin to do that integration. And along the way, your communication should get better because you're talking to all styles of people in every function. You're learning to deal with the people that may not necessarily be the fun ones.
From education point of view, which is the right degree I should go for, in whether it's undergrad or master's?
Yeah, so on an undergrad, you can do economics and have a minor in finance, or you can do accounting. And you can go up through public and then move into enterprise. But for me, accounting, finance, economics are the core. But I had a buddy who his undergrad was in cultural anthropology. He then got his MBA in finance, and now he's VP for planning for large enterprises.
Do we need to do MBA in finance to go to like senior level position in finance?
I don't think it's required, but if you don't have that specialty, it is definitely a benefit. For me personally, since I got an accounting degree, midway through my career, while I worked, I got an executive MBA, and I felt like it helped a ton to reestablish the foundation, the fundamentals of all the other functions.
Got it. As a CEO, what I should know and learn so that I can work effectively with my CFO? Like what type of basic understanding I should have so that I don't mess up with my CFO and he doesn't go crazy on me every evening or every night when he goes back home.
It's like, what the hell? Yeah, well, you're driving me crazy. I really think it's a function of making sure some of the foundational questions of what your mission is and where you want to go. And does your CFO understand that? And then for your CFO to say, this is how I communicate. So for me, I need context of a given equation on what problem you're trying to solve, and then I'm good. So it's really establishing the foundation of the communication to flow well. And then over time, for you to be honest, like Dan, I don't understand the interaction between a P&L and a balance sheet. Can you? So things, your honest sort of vulnerability of, can you walk me through some of these fundamentals as we go through, and let's say raise some money, debt growth? Why are they asking these questions? Because sometimes they're a little strange. The questions are. So it's really around having the vulnerability to say, hey, listen, can you teach me this? Because as a CFO, I never assume I know anything. I will ask basic questions all the time about the business, because if I assume something, we could disconnect. So I'm going to ask you a lot of basic questions so that when we build, my knowledge of foundation is always solid. So you really, to me, it's about the foundation of communication and the strategy that you have, and to create the openness to be vulnerable with each other.
Got it. So let's say I have, the right product. I'm in the right time. I have a good team, but just because I don't have the required educational background or required experience background, I'm not able to raise money. So for that class, do you have any suggestions?
Yep. Two things. One, find an advisor that is going to help you through that equation, who's been there and done that. So when that advisor tripped multiple times and created learnings for each of those journeys, that person can help you skip those and just give you the learning up front so that you can accelerate, because raising money is a really hard thing, to your point, super hard. And when you do it, it takes an enormous investment in time. So having somebody who's been there and done that from the story of the business and the value proposition side. The second piece is, we talked about this in the beginning, where you end up having, how do I tell my story with finance? You have to set up the structure right up front of how you analyze it. So if your books are good and solid, and VCs can tell right away where you've actually done proper accounting, once you have that foundation in place early on, then you have a fractional CFO, say, who's building a model that reflects what you believe the market is and is consistent with that. Then I think you're well on your way. The key is really testing the model multiple different ways. You have to call bullshit on your stuff. Say, what about this question? Have I come from this angle? So find the right advisor, make sure you have the foundational accounting in place. You don't need to invest a ton as long as the structure's there. And the structure is usually in the form of a chart of accounts, which is basically how does finance create a database that's meaningful? That's the translation that I would say. So getting the accounting firm up front that you can tell is doing the right things, or your accounting team have an advisor that helps coach them in their accounting on a regular basis. Yeah.
So my way of learning is I look at two things or both the things. One, a successful example and a failure example,
Yeah.
right? And I think it's important to look at or to deep dive or learn the failure story, whether it's a person or a business or a corporation or anything, right?
Yeah.
Do you have an experience where you have seen a company fail because they didn't do the right things when it comes to financial investments, like investing in finance, or maybe they were too focused on only one thing, which is example it can be product or revenue,
Yeah.
and then maybe a live example of failure in your career.
So the first one is startup. One of the smaller startups that I went to, they had an incredible technology. It was so sexy that a major VC fund, one of the top tier VC funds, invested over $100 million in this because they fell in love with the technology. But did they ask the fundamental question of product market fit and scale? No, they didn't, which is a classic thing, even somebody who's as great as one of these top tier companies. And it took me about 6 to 7 months to see there is no runway here.
It took 6 months?
So about 6 months, because we were developing the product. It hadn't actually gone to market yet. And when it went to market, it failed spectacularly. I mean, we were doing one or two units. It was incredible.
So you said two things, right?
Yeah.
One is incredible technology, but it was not the right product market fit.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Myopic. It's kind of, this is the metaphor is it's like the teenager with the hormones who sees this beautiful potential girlfriend, but she doesn't have a personality or doesn't have the intellect to really create a conversation that's going to be a long-term relationship.
Interesting. That's a good example.
Yeah, just call it sexy, call it what it is, right? So yeah, you get myopic because you're just so in love.
So that you don't see anything else around.
Yeah, the blinders are on.
Got it. Cool.
The other example is my personal career. So I went into a job. I left a big enterprise, went to a medium enterprise, followed somebody who was somebody I worked with before. The prior 4 people before me failed at this job.
Oh, okay.
That's a good.
And you took that job.
And I
Same.
took that job. And he said, you know what good looks like, Dan. Now you want to see what's effed up and how to fix it. Because if you just have a career that's always what's good look like and you don't challenge yourself, where are you going to go? So we had 4 businesses that couldn't do the most basic things. And in a public company, they have things called material weakness, which could affect your actual share price. They had 4 material weaknesses in finance, in the function I was joining, and 50 or 60 what they call significant deficiencies, which are non-trivial things that have to be fixed. So first thing I did was hire the right team, who then could execute on my behalf and help lead them through that. And the second piece was to begin to scale out the decision support or information to start telling the story in the manufacturing world. And the CFO, who's I work for, and the senior VP of manufacturing did this all the time. And the CFO was putting me in the middle of it.
To get crushed?
Yeah, well, basically, I have to go do the conflict with this person I'm supposed to partner with. So it was very untenable. We were successful fixing all the things for all the 4 divisions, and then we had hired the right people, and we then moved everybody into their given business unit. And they moved, the senior VP had left and moved and had individual manufacturing people. But my challenge was navigating to push back on the CFO and say, you go have the conflict with this person. And once you guys have sorted it out, because I don't necessarily want to be your spear.
Right.
About 6 months after I moved into another job where I was running M&A for them, the CEO came by and apologized to me. He said, what happened to you was my fault, my lack of leadership, which I really respected.
Nice. Let's come to Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Right? I remember in 2020, when I hired my first employee in US. So I, recruited a recruiting agency, and then, they lined up a bunch of interviews. I was in New York. That was just a month before COVID happened.
Oh, wow.
And then, my first interview was scheduled in San Francisco, right? Because I had 2 interviews there. So, one candidate, she was coming from Seattle. So I asked her to, fly down to SFO, and then, I had one candidate who was local. But my first time experience, because before then I was, I visited New York a couple of times. I had went to a couple of other cities in US. But the moment I, was in San Francisco, or maybe, one day I was free, so I went to San Jose, and then, in the Bay Area basically. So I liked it, because maybe that's kind of my personality, where in terms of, the structure, mountains, overall infrastructure, or the vibe, right? And since then, whenever I go to the Bay Area, I get that energy.
Yeah.
Like I'm happy, and maybe in future I plan to move there, right? So currently I live in New York, but then down to line I want to explore different cities, meet different people, understand the culture, understand the framework of every place, right? How it functions, because every city is a different place. How do you look at Silicon Valley? Because now you are part of that. Like, it's not something you're looking from outside, because when you look at something from outside, your view is completely different. And when you're basically inside, let's consider a mansion, right?
Yeah.
You're living there every day. For you, it's normal.
Yeah.
There's nothing new.
Right.
Obviously, you feel that, you enjoy it. But a person who is just passing by, and he sees that mansion, he was like, wow.
Cool.
Right? Cool. How do you look at it? Like, what should I know if I'm not from the country, or I have not visited, about Silicon Valley?
Yeah, I think a lot of Silicon Valley just gives you this, like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing. I get to go do a startup for 2 years and I'm a millionaire. The reality is quite different. So yeah, if you luck out and you hit with a Facebook and it's growing like crazy, you could earn a huge amount of money. That's just a rare thing.
So that's not regular?
Oh gosh, no.
Okay.
Now, there's a shit ton of money, because you look at the houses and you got to buy $2 million for a shack, right? And going in, if you expect that it's not going to be that much hard work and it's just going to be this fantastic experience, it'd be a nice little wake-up call. Now, Bay Area is awesome. You can get to the beach, you can go surfing, you can go scuba diving. If you have 4 hours away, you can go skiing. You can go see the most incredible national parks that make you believe in a higher power. I mean, it's just a great place to be. It's part of the attraction. The weather's incredible. And it's hard, arduous work. whether you're in the finance world and you're wearing multiple hats because you're in the startup environment. And if you enjoy hard work and solving problems, that can be fun. And that's where I am. Having the fun of seeing something not as, oh crap, I got a whole bunch of work to do, of more than, oh, how do I take this super complex problem, break it down, make it simple, so the team can go implement a potential solution. So it's really the framework and the mindset that you come into it. So yeah, it's a great place. Yes, you can be successful and you can work hard. And yeah, there's plenty of success out there, but there's more failure than there is success. And the example I'd given before where the company was just not going to go anywhere, I invested 2 years of super hard work. But that informed, that learning and that informing me of how things operate in a smaller startup set me up for helping out multitudes of other companies. So it's the small wins that end up becoming more fun for me.
So there are very few cities around the globe, right, who has successfully attracted diverse talent from all the countries.
Yeah.
Especially top talent, I would say.
Yeah.
And that is one of the major reasons why few cities are highly successful.
Yeah.
So why do you think Bay Area was able to do the same? Like, people from all around the world are there.
Yeah.
Highly talented, ready to work hard, want to do, like, have a vision, want to do big things, they dream big.
Yeah.
What's the magnet?
So my perspective on why Silicon Valley is what it is, it has a historical aspect to it.
Oh, okay.
If you go back to, I think it was the 50s even, and one of the first companies to do the startup thing out of the garage was HP. And HP is now...
Even before IBM?
Yeah. Well, no. I would say IBM was kind of making tons of headway. And HP wasn't in computers at that time. They were test and measurement, which is now not even HP. If you go back to that growth and the culture they built and the success they built, you then had inspired people to then go do their own startup. Then you had the scientists that ended up doing the chip industry that then splintered out and did AMD and Intel and many others. And all of a sudden so what's happening is you're building this network of talent slowly, but faster than anybody else in technology. And they start this spin and people get inspired to go do it again. So by the time you get into the 70s, you've got a couple VCs that are becoming established, which then are putting the money in a place where they can get the talent. So it's, to your point, it's a magnet. Once you get a foundation, it just takes off, right? So I just think about the history of those different companies that came in and became that. Because you can see the spin-offs of different things. So there's a couple, Sun Microsystems had I don't remember the last, Andy, it starts with a B. He then came to Cisco for a while, then he started with another Cisco person, started Arista, which is a very fast switching company that has a huge amount of share that probably is bigger than Cisco's at this point. So you just create this inspiration because their people are geared toward or solving a problem. And then they get inspired and they have the network because they've been part of a successful company. And so you're basically having all these islands grow together into this massive center of innovation. And people keep on talking about how it's going to go away, but it keeps on.
Yeah, coming back.
Yeah. And there are places growing in Florida and Austin and a few other places, but yeah, it's really incredible. Because you drive around and you see all these massive companies that are worldwide. Yes.
So, a different question. Let's say I'm a young professional or a young entrepreneur planning to move to United States,
Yep.
who should choose New York and who should choose the Bay Area,
Interesting.
and why?
Yeah.
From career point of view.
Yeah. So the Bay Area is going to be more raw tech. Software, hardware. I think if you're software based in certain ad tech industries, New York is great in terms of the marketing area, because a couple of companies that Google bought grew up there and were successful and had that.
Oh, okay.
So if you're in the ad tech space, it's a great place to be. Whereas California or Silicon Valley is going to be more a function of your software-based.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're hardware-based, but mostly software. And then if you're in the biotech industry, you're probably going to be in Boston.
Okay. What about finance?
Finance,
Both?
both. Yeah. One of the companies that supported was an IT company. Their focus was supporting startups, but in our IT industry, having the best possible service to have them scale and have them be safe. And the biotech is one of the places where they have tons of share in the IT industry because of the need for not losing their IP.
Cool. What's the fun part of Silicon Valley?
Fun part is where you live. There's just so much to do. Yeah, you're working hard, but you can play hard. And for me personally, it's around, at this stage, it's around being able to mentor a team, not just solve the problems, which is the core fun for me. But it's the work hard and the play hard.
So, let's say at the peak of your career, how did your day look like?
How do you know
In
I
terms-
haven't reached, well, it's my peaks right now.
You never know. But then when you're young,
Yeah.
you're most likely to hit that peak, right?
Yeah. I think it was a function of having so much abundant energy that I had a core amount of time where I'm actually ingrained in solving a problem via data or accounting, and a core set of time going through and solving problems. So when I was in the business unit, pulling together engineers, manufacturing engineers, some of the chip folks, and ultimately some of the GMs later, but solving the problem of our cost of products too high. Look at the BOM for me, both the engineering and the manufacturing engineering, and let's see where the biggest cost is. The pulling everybody together was the first time that I was a part of something that I felt like I actually helped with that process. Obviously, it's a team effort. It was just so much fun to see the impact from a 10% margin jump because we had replaced a thing called an FPGA, which is a very bulky, super expensive custom piece to a chip. As long as you could go and do the analysis that the cost reduction is worth the investment, that we had a massive impact on the margin.
Got it.
So that was dig deep in your own work that you're doing, but now begin to start to play a leadership role in pulling people together for a bigger.
So on a personal side, like if you have to give a rundown of your day, starting like from morning till evening,
Yep.
how do you schedule even today? Because even at this stage, you're super organized, and you're still trying to have a very solid balance between your work and personal life.
Yeah.
So what's your how does your ideal day look like?
The night before, I'm reviewing the multitude of action items that I have. So I have an inventory of action items by logical grouping that I'm looking at. I then pull those pieces out of what I believe the priorities are or the constraints for the future and make sure that I have my to-do list for the next day. And sometimes I even plant the seeds by, let's say if I have a team here in India, I might write the note of tomorrow, I would love it if you guys would solve these 3 things, and here's exactly why I need it. So it's really about planning. It doesn't feel right when you're an individual contributor to all of a sudden spend 2 hours of planning a day. But that 2 hours of planning yields so much productivity, not just for myself, but hopefully the folks that I work with as well, to help them solve problems. So 2 hours of planning a day, it would be an hour in the morning, an hour at night, and then setting time aside for me just to think. So the morning will be a series of meetings with folks because I want to be able to enable the team to go do what has to happen. So 2 to 3 hours of that, then an hour or 2 of thinking time. Again, what problems are coming up? How do I get ahead? Because if I don't do that, then I'm become consumed tactically, and that's not where at this stage I should play. Then towards the end of the day, it's trying to close out some of the problems from the previous day, or depending on the time zone that you're working in, or connecting with my peers, or helping enable the other parts of the team is the later part of the day. At the end of the day, it's a workout.
Yeah. You do it at the end of the day? I do it at the end of the day.
Okay. Because in the morning, or at least now, it's in the afternoon. Because I want to be able to make sure that the team in India is not having to stay up too late. Previous job, I got up early in the morning, had early morning meetings, and then I went and worked out. Then I went to work. So I'm structuring my day flexible based upon how do I enable my team or my peers.
Yeah, cool. Let's talk about your interesting topic, right? Out of work.
Yeah.
Scuba diving.
Scuba diving.
So, how many years? Like, how long you are doing it? And how that's different because people who are into people who are professional scuba divers and who do it basically as a regular hobby are less compared to, let's say, other professional or maybe other activities, physical or sports. What is that thing we should know is interesting about diving deep in water, which is, if you look at from global perspective, like when we hear there are mysteries hidden in Sahara Desert, in Amazon forest, and there is a lot of mystery hidden underwater because it's still unexplored, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about your scuba diving hobby.
So the origin point was I graduated from college. Buddy and I went and traveled to Australia.
Oh, nice.
And I said I'd love to scuba dive someday. I used to have dreams that I could breathe underwater.
Oh, okay.
When I was a kid.
Is it possible?
With scuba. But like
but without.
No.
Yeah.
I like grew lungs or something like that. Or, the Aquaman thing where you got the, right? So I was the first version of Aquaman in my mind. So I was in Australia. It was the best place to be. Great Barrier Reef. Took advantage of it. Got certified there. And then would dive. And then I dove in New Zealand when we went there. Whenever I go to Hawaii, I would do it. But it wasn't something I was doing all the time. And then recently I was thinking about balance, not just now, but even later. And I want to have more than just a hobby of drinking wine and working out. I need another. I want to diversify further because for me, the more diverse your experience, the more creative you can be because you can draw on that. So,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah,
The more diverse your experiences, you can be more creative.
yeah, because you can problem solve in different ways. My brother's a brilliant, I'll just call him an engineer, where he can solve problems that people are like, how did you do that? So for me, it's because he's had so many different types of jobs, same for me, so many different functions and so many different industries that I've supported over time, that diversity, I can draw on different things that may not people think are connected.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do that. I left a company that, again, I didn't see it being successful, and took 4 months and invested from the basic open water diver to a dive master, and then from a dive master to instructor, with the idea that I love to teach, and I love the water, and I am a curious person by nature, and I am fascinated by every little thing underwater because it's all new again to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I am a kid in a candy shop when I'm down there.
How deep you go underwater?
Initial certification, you're around 18 meters.
18 meters.
Then you can do another certification called advanced. This is PADI because there's multiple different scuba teaching organizations. PADI. You can go to 30 when you're in advanced, or you can do a deep-based certification. And then before you become a technical diver, you can actually go to 40. And I went to 40.
40 meters.
And the biggest impact on your body, there's a lot of atmospheres, pressure on you. You don't necessarily feel it because it's gradual. However, the nitrogen is building up in your body. And if you ever had laughing gas at the dentist, it's the same thing. The nickname is being narked, and you are not as, I'll call it sober as you think you are. So when I was underneath, above the water, we did a 4x4 grid of numbers randomly placed. I did that above water, went down at 40 meters, did it again, 2x. My processing time was impacted.
Oh, wow.
So how do you have awareness of what is affecting you in new surroundings? Can be applied anywhere.
Interesting.
Because do I then need to be even more diligent than I normally am?
Yeah.
So if I'm in a hyper high investment capital company who's making chips, how do I end up being even more thoughtful around my planning and more thoughtful around the demand that's out there? Because if I've invested $1 billion in a fab, I better have the demand in place.
Yeah. How does it help, how does being underwater, whether you call it swimming or scuba diving, help your health get better? Or help your body, stay younger than your age?
Yeah. I'm carrying 40 to 50 pounds on my body. And standing up, I'm basically doing a squat and if you don't have that standing power, your all-cause mortality, all the different ways you can die, will go up if you don't have that power. And I'm currently in California where I dive mostly versus off boats where I was when I was in Honduras. And I have to walk 500 yards with that 40 plus pounds on my back.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm getting the strength. The following day, I show it. I'm sore, but I'm gaining strength from that. So for my overall health, for my my longevity, having that strength is huge. Second, when you're underwater, your breathing becomes very fundamental. So you meditate. I meditate. It's very close to that. Because the most fundamental thing I'm doing is making sure my breath is the right level. Am I breathing super deep? If I am, I'm probably consuming too much air and also not, as I call it, trim. How do I breathe in the middle part of my lungs? So your awareness of your body ends up helping you in multiple different ways, because let's say I'm in a tense situation, how do I stay present? When I dive, I'm as present as I can ever be. So that body awareness really creates a lot of skills. And then I don't know all the science behind it, but I know being in the water is super grounding and helpful for overall health as well.
Okay.
And I have at times had back issues, and when I spend more than 2 hours in the water, I have no pain.
Oh, wow.
Because no
That's
gravity.
new.
Because no gravity. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's also, I don't know, it's also really good for you as far as, let's just say you want to become trim. I lost like 15 pounds. It wasn't muscle because I was in 80-degree water 2+ hours a day. And think of the thermal difference between yourself and the water. It's over 20 times more than air. It's sucking calories out of you.
Yeah. Maybe we can wrap this up with any scary or horrifying experience you had underwater while you were diving. Maybe a near-death
Near-death
experience.
experience? Thankfully, no. I haven't had that. But the scary piece of the equation was watching somebody who had a partner, because you're always with a buddy for safety, who was ignoring, and it didn't have the other person there, and the person started to run out of air.
Oh, okay.
But that buddy was not doing their job, but somebody else was aware enough to swim to them to give them their spare. Because that would be really super scary. The other scary one was a buddy didn't pay attention to how much he was drinking, how much he was sleeping, and how much he had gone up and down in the water, and he ended up having what they call as the bends and had to go into a hyperbaric chamber for 6 hours. So those are two, thankfully not directed at that.
That's nice.
Yeah.
You're lucky.
Yeah, exactly. It helps you appreciate the little things, right?
So one last message you would like to give to young Indian professionals, or let's say young professionals across the globe,
Yep.
who have big dreams,
Yeah.
who are aspiring to become something in their life which their ancestors were not able to do. Having, let's say, 30, 40 years of professional experience, grown in one of the most desired places on this planet, what will be your feedback or suggestion?
Be curious. And related to that, never stop learning. And don't ever let go of your goals of what you want to aspire to. Never lose faith in that. I go back to some notes I made when I was in my late 20s. And I ended up accomplishing most of those goals, but at times I got discouraged. So, but being curious and always learning, and eventually I ended up doing my MBA or Scuba for stretching my mind in a different way. So always be curious, never stop learning. And for me, it's always working on communication as well. Those three things and being driven, you could go a long way.
Perfect. So let's end up by saying namaste. So namaste is a form of saying hi in India.
Okay.
In Hindi. So
Namaste.
we do like this. Join hands together and say namaste.
Namaste.
Cool. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was fun.
It's awesome.
Yeah.